Box scores, Derek. What was the biggest positive Illinois showed as a team in Spain?
I think depth is probably a good place to start. I think there are a couple of different areas I could go with this, but I do like the depth of this team when they can play 9, 10 guys. You throw Damask in that mix, and yes, you're going to ultimately play everybody on this kind of a trip. But we've talked about before. I think the front court's got a chance to just have a ton of ability to pair different guys together. Whether you want to play Coleman at the 5 and slot Gary at the 4, or Damask can play the 4, or Goody could play the 4. Play Dane there, who played pretty well over in Spain, and is a guy that we definitely aren't forgetting about in this mix because he played differently when Dane's on the court. He's a guy you can throw the ball into, back to the basket, pair him with Coleman at the 4, or again, some of those other guys that can slot in there at the mix as well. And Amani Hansberry made sure with his stat lines that he's someone that, yes, has traffic in front of him. Yes, he's a freshman, looked pretty good and was very productive. And I mean, we talked a lot of, and during the recruitment and after Illinois landed him, how much I love his game. I love his potential, what he can develop into. So I really like that part of Illinois in terms of what they can do in the front court. I think they got a lot of other pieces, wing and guard. Yes, point guard is something that is still very unproven, but I just like the number of guys they can throw at people. I think it plays into, if you want to play a faster tempo, you can throw more guys out there, keep guys fresh. You can play through foul trouble. And then just kind of maybe go some subheaders here. I do think that rebounding was something that really stood out. Look at their offensive rebounding numbers. I mean, they got back 51% of their misses, which, yes, they just were able to overwhelm people on the glass with their physicality, their athleticism. I think that's a strength. And they turn people over a lot. I don't think that's something that they're necessarily going into this season saying we're going to be a super high turnover defense. But when you have athleticism and some pretty darn good individual defenders, you are able to play that into fast break points, and they did that on this trip as well.
Yeah, I was chatting with our boy Trotter and a few other people yesterday about, offensively, like that's going to be a concern we talk about here. But what's their offense? For me on this trip, it was offensive rebound and get steals and go in transition, because this team in transition is ridiculous. I mean, Terrence Shannon, we saw Dre Gibbs Lawhorn with maybe the plays you said of the trip with his windmill dunk, Justin Harmon, Sincere Harris, Coleman Hawkins, Quincy Gary. Like, this is a big athletic team. They are freight trains in transition. And Derek, they need to do that. They need to dominate the glass, and they need to get some steals and turn that into offense, because I think it's easy offense for a team that I expect is not going to have consistent offense.
Yeah, half court could be an issue when you think about trying to have Ty Rodgers settle into that role, and you need him to be able to facilitate. And if you're not playing him on the ball at points, probably Draven Gibbs Lawhorn. I'd say Terrence can't initiate some offense and stuff like that, but it's just this team's more built to play kind of in that open court, and they got a number of slashers that can go to the basket. And I think a guy like Luke Goody can run to the wing, run to the corner. Damask can spot up. Coleman can be kind of that trailer guy, and they're able to get out and go. And they're not going to be able to physically overwhelm and athletically overwhelm teams as much as they did on this trip. You go into the Big Ten. I mean, they can do that. We've seen it with Wisconsin. Why Illinois has been a tough one for them here recently is because they've just been more athletic for them. And I mean, it helps when you have an All-American and Kofi, All-American Io, but just that kind of profile that Illinois has upgraded their athleticism, that's just given some teams some problems. But there's no doubt they can get up and down. I do think opportunistic defense in terms of trying to get those steals, to be able to play that way in fast break is something they should look to do, because it can kind of take away from some of what we're going to talk about here in terms of weaknesses, the shooting and some of the point guard play.